President Biden was addressing the nation on this infrastructure bill, which they want to vote on today. Dan, this is, again, I told people last break, this is different than the reconciliation package, which has that troubling provision about the IRS that Senator Manchin been opposed to. But as we've talked about earlier before we were on the air, this is still a big question about whether or not this one can get through the House and the 55 progressive, because we've already seen AOC and Ilhan Omar, while President Biden was speaking, they said no. We also saw Bernie Sanders from the Senate say no. This is to the $1.7 trillion. But there was some bipartisan support for this, so that they don't have to have every Democrat, I guess. Where do you think this stands? Are we actually going to see a vote on this today in Washington?
Well, it's so convoluted, Jordan. I mean, to be honest with you, both of these bills are running together now, and this is something that we warned about when the Senate did pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is a little north of $1 trillion. Like you mentioned, Jordan, that bill passed with 69 votes in the United States Senate. So 19 senators on the Republican side voted for that when it passed the House. Jordan, and look, I mean, it depends on your interpretation, but I think probably at least half of that bill is on true infrastructure. So I think if that bill came up for the House in a vacuum, I think it would probably pass in a bipartisan fashion. But today what you're seeing is you're really seeing both of these bills being conflated. So maybe let me just back up and kind of describe both of those bills. The bill that you're talking about, the one that's just north of $1 trillion, could be taken up in the House today if Nancy Pelosi wanted to do that. It passed the Senate in August. But what President Biden just did, Jordan, is he came out and he talked about both of these bills, and he is claiming to have a framework deal on both of these bills and is asking the House to move them. But there's a litany of problems, Jordan, but the biggest problem for him procedurally is the only bill that's ready for a vote in the House is that bipartisan infrastructure bill. Now, he is claiming that he has a deal in his caucus on the larger reconciliation bill as well, and he's put out 3 pages of bullet points totaling $1.7 trillion in spending, and then he says he also lists a few bullet points about how he's going to pay for it. Jordan, we can get into some of those details if you want to, but like you mentioned, his big problem on that, literally before he came out to speak, Senator Sanders and members of the progressives in the House said, you know what, we don't know. We don't know if we will go for this until we see the legislative text. And the other problem he has, Jordan, those same members said, we're also not going to vote for that bipartisan bill until we have that legislative text. So we're waiting on Speaker Pelosi now to come out and tell us when she is going to schedule this vote on the bipartisan bill, whether or not it will be later today. Jordan, we will see what she says, but here's what we have at this moment. President Biden says he has a deal on both of these bills, and when in reality he doesn't have a deal on either of them.
And with inside this, the infrastructure bill, I mean, we see, Harry, there's $555 billion for the Green New Deal. There's $400 billion in IRS investments, which is different than the provision about getting into people's bank accounts, but you can see how that can be utilized to do the same thing, because that's a lot less than the $80 billion that they need for their 80,000 new employees. But there's a lot of stuff in this that people, there's a reason why it didn't get full bipartisan support. It's not basic infrastructure. It's not just roads and bridges. Or expanding that even to the internet and internet access. We saw that as an organization. We assisted a lot of families who did. President Biden talked about that during when the schools went virtual, and we assisted families in making sure that the school districts provided what they needed. So I think if you talked about those things and that was it, yeah, that's real. But when you talk about $500 billion to a Green New Deal, that's not going to. This is why they don't get into the details with us.
I think that's correct, and consistent with your point, this particular reconciliation bill also commissions climate police so that they can look at every single energy transaction you and I engage in.
Folks, we come back, we're going to get further into this. Take your phone calls at 1-800-684-3110. More on Iran as well. So give us a call. We want to hear from you. Well, let me ask you specifically on Iran. How dangerous do you believe this administration is in dealing with these issues internationally? I mean, I feel like they make things worse, not better, by their actions, by their words. Like, yeah, we'll lift all the sanctions. 1-800-684-3110.
Pat Boomer here again, and I assure you, I have never before endorsed a pain relief product. Not until now. Not until Relief Factor came along as a 100% drug-free solution for people struggling with ordinary pain. Quite simply, Relief Factor was designed by doctors to help relieve those occasional aches and pains due to aging, exercise, and everyday living. Let me ask you, are aches and pains keeping you from sleeping through the night? Or keeping you from taking those nice long walks or playing golf or tennis? You can't really call it living if you can't get around comfortably. The 3-week quick start from Relief Factor may be all you need to lower or even eliminate these pains. A whole lot of people have already gone to ReliefFactor.com, and here's something you need to know. The majority of people who order the 3-week quick start, now only $19.95, go on to order more. Let's see if we can get you out of pain too. Go to ReliefFactor.com.
Hi folks, Don Crow here with the Bible League, thanking you for your very generous responses in our current campaign, The World Needs the Word. Bibles for the Nations. Also want to let you know that we're near the end of the month of October, but we still need some more Bibles to meet our goal of sending several thousand copies of God's Word to heart-hungry Christians and others around the world. So if you have given already, thanks very much. But if you haven't, would you consider doing it right now? $5 buys a Bible, 50 buys 10, 100 buys 20. A gift of $500 will provide 100 copies of God's Word when you call 800-YES-WORD. That's 800-937-9673. Again, 800-937-9673, or you can give online at FamilyTalkToday.com. But thank you for doing something right now. Time's running out in the campaign, and we need your help today to put it up and over the top. 800-YES-WORD, 800-937-9673, online at FamilyTalkToday.com.
Welcome back. 2 seconds. We are taking your phone calls. We're tracking the reconciliation. We're watching to see, and also the infrastructure bill to see more comments after the president's speech. He's heading off to Europe on a climate summit later today. So the question is, does this vote occur? The vote's not going to occur while we're on the air today, but they are trying to push for this to happen as we speak sometime today. At least now, you've got the opposition that's come out to it. Primarily has been from inside the President Biden's own party. Most Republicans now you can start parsing that based off of you talking about the infrastructure bill or the reconciliation package, and what's actually going to be voted on. All of that unclear, and very similar. I was listening to Nancy Pelosi yesterday. Very similar to we'll find out what's in it after we pass it. She said, well, people don't really know what's in it, but they will like it. So it's the same thing for Washington. This to me is what obsessed goes. These are massive spending bills. The fact that any of these members of Congress, especially talking about the 435 House members, most of which are not in the leadership, most of, who are getting their information from the leadership, do they even know what they're going to be voting on in this if they vote today?
The answer to that is no, Jordan. I'm holding the 3 pages of framework in my hands that President Biden has released. 2 of them are bullet points for expenditures. The third one is the proposed revenue that will be generated. You have to read revenue as tax increases. Jordan, this is why we said several months ago that if they just brought up a clean infrastructure bill, they could probably get it moved. They could probably get it moved in a bipartisan fashion. But as soon as you move to the reconciliation process, Jordan, that is an intentional decision to go it alone. It's an intentional decision to block the minority party out of the room, and you have to get it done with your own votes. And so all of the debate that we're talking about today on this new $1.75 trillion framework for reconciliation, Jordan, that's all inside the Democrat Party. That is not dependent on any Republican votes, and you have to get both Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and the progressives like Bernie Sanders and AOC to go along with it, because they have razor slim majorities. But based on what's in it, Jordan, look, let me just give you a couple of examples. The bill says that they're going to spend the bullet points, say they're going to spend $1.75 trillion unless they can get the parliamentarians to agree that they can also put another $100 billion in for some sort